All right, ladies and gentlemen. So apparently, Ghosts of Yotei has finally had the Japan numbers released from Famitsu. And all week we've been talking about this and waiting for the Famitsu numbers to drop because in Japan, they actually do report sales. Now, keep in mind, they only report physical sales. And that's because I just want to preface this video by saying in Japan, for those of you that don't know, physical sales are king. I have people in my comments trying to cope unbelievably hard and say that's not true, but it is true. With the culture in Japan, physical sales are king by about a 70% ratio and 30% digital. Now, with all that being said, the reason why this is important is because we have been wondering, well, if this game truly is a massive success and it is totally not a flop compared to Tsushima, then clearly in Japan, where physical is king, there's going to be an equal amount of people who are going to want to buy this game physically, right? There's not going to be a massive drop off in Japan because in Japan, physical's king. So they're going to want to buy the game, right? Especially since Ghost of Tsushima was a brand new IP that nobody knew anything about. Whereas Ghost of Yotei is a sequel to a beloved IP that had many years of a following behind it. So surely this must be a massive win for this franchise. Except, unfortunately, it's not. Even though the journalists are out here trying to say Ghosts of Yotei follows in Tsushima's footsteps, dominating the Japanese charts on PS5, right? They clearly are trying to make these headlines seem as if you should be very proud and happy about the way Ghosts of Yotei is performing. And they'll try to cope and gaslight you and tell you, well, physical sales are down across the board, right? Everybody is losing on physical sales, but they're making it up in digital. There's about equal number of digital, if not more, when it comes to these games. But that's not how it works in Japan. But in any case, and if you keep in mind, that argument only works if you're trying to say that digital only existed with Yotei, right? Digital sales also existed with Ghost of Tsushima. Do we understand this? So even though when Ghost of Tsushima came out, by the way, it came out during the coup, so it's very difficult to land physical copies, but that's neither here nor there. Ghost of Tsushima came out, there were still digital sales that you could have. So whatever the number is physically, if you want to use that argument, you could just use that argument with Tsushima too. And then you'll say, well, it rose over the last couple of years. Yeah, that's fine. But when you add whatever percentage you want to add of digital sales on top of the physical sales in Japan, it's still a much bigger number than what Yotei's at. So in any case, now we are here, right? After all that context, we are here. These are the Famitsu numbers officially for the week of release with Yotei. And what do we have? Well, let's talk about it. On PS5, Ghost of Yotei in Japan sold 120,196. Now, they're telling you in the articles, they're saying that, oh, yeah, Ghost of Yotei is dominating all these games. Ghost of Yotei is absolutely destroying all of these games. What, remasters? Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. Oh, congratulations. Oh, it dominated Mario Kart. That's number 4 that released 4 months ago. Oh, wow. It dominated a game that released 4 months ago. That's fantastic. How do you feel about yourself? Oh, it dominated Digimon Story Time Stranger. I would hope so, considering Tsushima dominated Digimon games in the past. So what are we even comparing to? Do you guys understand what the lineup is with Yotei versus Tsushima when it came out? Let me remind you, if we check out Tsushima way back when, you would understand that Tsushima had to go up against the following games during its release. You guys ready for this? Check this out. This game had to go up against Death Stranding #1, a massive game in Japan. Massive, 185,000, right? Gran Turismo Sport, 139,000. Marvel Spider-Man, 132,520. And Days Gone, 114,319. Ghosts of Antifa barely passed what Days Gone did in Japan. It goes to show how much this franchise has fallen off in Japan. It is, in my opinion, that this game is getting felted by Japan, and they obviously don't want to admit this. They want to make it seem as if Ghost of Antifa is a massive success. It's a massive win, but the numbers don't lie. Ghost of Antifa sold 100,000 copies less than Ghost of Tsushima. Now, here's the thing. They're going to tell you, well, there's been a shift, right? The shift to digital gaming, why physical sales are declining. We all know that physical sales are on the decline for the majority of the world. That is not how it is in Japan. In Japan, it is going much slower than anywhere else in the world, especially in the US. You cannot compare the buying standards or the buying habits of people in the US compared to people in Japan. In Japan, physical is still king. It doesn't matter. It is even more king if you're a Nintendo player, but it is king regardless. 70% on average physical sales versus 30% on digital sales. And also keep in mind, guys, when people say the shift to digital gaming, you guys, I don't know if people understand that when they count digital sales, that is highly, highly padded by the amount of DLC that is digital only. Because keep in mind, guys, you can't go out there and buy a DLC physically. That's almost non-existent. Right? You can't go out there and buy a DLC physically. So all DLC is counted as digital sales, and that bolsters a digital sales number to make physical look like it's almost nothing. Right? Now, that's not to say that digital sales is not obviously the king in somewhere like United States. But the truth is that this is different habits and is heavily padded numbers by certain things that are available digital only. Now, with all that being said, you have this article here that tries to cope for Ghosts of Yotei. If you scroll down, you're going to see this. It says, according to the latest Famitsu software charts, as reported by Gamatsu, the PS5 exclusive shot straight to the top, shifting 120,196 copies. As always, it should be pointed out that these Japanese charts only count physical sales. And so it is assumed, and again, keyword assumed. We all know what assumed means. It makes an ass out of you and me that you can at least double that figure when taking digital transactions into account. No, you cannot. No, you cannot. When you are talking about a video game in Japan, you are not going to double your digital sales. When it comes to a country that does not prominently buy digitally, not by a large amount, right? 70% buy physically, 30% buy digitally in Japan. You cannot then suddenly say, oh, 50, double the digital. That's not how this works. Okay. If this was in the US, you might have a point. But when it comes to Japan, that is not the case at all. The reason why they're saying this is because they know, the journalists know, that this is a bad looking number, right? It's not a bad looking number because the game is going to flop. Okay. The game is not a flop. We already knew the game wasn't going to be a flop. The budget's too low, and it's coming from a strong IP of Tsushima that is co-opting and turning into its own thing, right? So it wasn't going to flop. Anybody with a brain could have seen that from a mile away. However, there is something called degradation of franchise, which basically means that this particular game, sure, is not going to be a flop, but it is degrading the franchise. In comparison to the first game, the sales are down. There is no doubt about that. You can try to cope. You can try to seethe about it all you want. You can try to manipulate the numbers and make it seem better than it actually is. Do whatever you want to do. But all across the board, on the UK and in Japan, but more so in Japan because that's where it actually counts for physical, these numbers are down by about 50% on average. So that means this franchise is down all across the board. And you could say, digital made it up, digital made it up. They still haven't said a single thing. Sucker Punch is quiet. Sony's quiet. PlayStation's quiet. Nobody has said a thing, okay? We are going to go on almost 2 weeks of this game being out, and nobody's going to say a thing. I would almost bet that we're going to go another 2 weeks without them saying a thing. And it's because they know that the numbers do not look as good as they were probably hoping for. They were hoping that people were going to buy this game no matter the drama. They were hoping that people were going to buy this game no matter the situation around Erika Ishii, whatever fucking excuse you want. But at the end of the day, man, the degradation of the franchise is slowly happening. If you want proof of what degradation of franchise looks like, I'm going to point to Dragon Age. Everybody knows Dragon Age was a super popular franchise. When it first came out, it started off as a little bit of a niche, and then slowly but surely started to gain a lot of fans. And then eventually the franchise blew up. And then by the time Inquisition came out, it was insane. It was like over 11 million copies, 12 million copies, whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, with Dragon Age the Veilguard, it flopped so bad that degradation of franchise didn't even get an opportunity to kick in. And not only that, had Dragon Age the Veilguard been their only flop, we would probably have gotten another Dragon Age to see what the degradation of the franchise would have been at that point. But the problem with BioWare is that they released Anthem. They released Andromeda. After Inquisition, they released two massive flops that cost them so much money that they couldn't afford to subsidize the flop of Dragon Age the Veilguard. Otherwise, they would have. If Dragon Age the Veilguard was the game that came out after Inquisition, they would have been able to subsidize it. But because they flopped two games, they can't subsidize it. However, with Sucker Punch, this has not happened. Sucker Punch does not have two other games that flopped in between the release of both Ghost games. It's only Ghost games. So Ghost of Antifa has the money to be subsidized from Tsushima. So even though it's selling less and it's making money, it's making way less money than what Tsushima did. Slowly but surely, if they continue down this path, you are going to have a big degradation of the franchise that is going to eventually lead to potentially either the franchise is completely dying or them having to turn face and try to go back to what made the franchise loved in the first place. So again, guys, nobody ever questioned whether or not this game was going to make money. The simple truth is we were all saying, myself included, this game was not going to do anywhere near what Tsushima did. And they're going to try to combine all the numbers they possibly can to try to make it seem like it did. But all the numbers are pointing to the fact that it's not. And the truth is we haven't heard from any official source. This is all theory crafting. This is what we do every day with every game. So for the people crying like, oh, you keep talking about Tsushima numbers and Yotei numbers, I talk about all game numbers, okay? You go to my streams, I talk about literally all game numbers. I just talked about on my other stream about 5 different game numbers. So you guys are focusing on the one game that matters the most to you, and that's your call. You can do whatever you want to do. But for me, I talk about all numbers. And if numbers scare you, I don't really know what to tell you. People talk about numbers in sports all the time, and nobody yells at the sportscasters, stop talking about the numbers. All you're doing is crying about the numbers. That doesn't happen. It's only in the gaming industry when people want to pick sides and have like console wars or whatever fucking bullshit. That only happens here. We all talk numbers. That's what we do. That's what gamers do. If you don't want to talk numbers, go play your game. If your game was really as fun as you say it is, you wouldn't be worrying about what other people were saying. You wouldn't be caring and going into people's streams and complaining about people talking numbers about the game you supposedly love to play because you would be playing it, right? That I feel like that's obvious at this point. But in any case, guys, this is where the numbers are at. I just wanted to share this bit of information. According to this week of Famitsu sales, 120,196 physical sales for Ghosts of Antifa is where we stand. I'll check next week's numbers to see if there's a big drop or if this game is truly like for it to be helpful for this game, the numbers should be consistent, right? Or as consistent as humanly possible. I'm sure they're going to hope that the number stays fairly consistent and they score over another 100,000 copies. That would be good for the game. But we'll see what ends up happening next week when we follow up with these numbers, as we always do with every game. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next one.